Chapter 1. The Look. The lobby of the Belmont Grand was a cathedral of polished marble and gold trim. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, and soft classical music played from invisible speakers. It was the kind of place where every step echoed and every smile felt rehearsed. Mrs. Louise Carter walked in with her head held high. She wasn't dressed like most of the guests. No designer luggage, no silk scarf, just a denim jacket, navy ball cap, and a practical canvas tote that had traveled with her through 5 countries. She walked with grace, slower now at 73, but her presence was steady, grounded. She approached the front desk. The man behind it glanced up, and in that split second, Louise saw it. The look, the one that came before a question mark, the one that scanned her clothes, her skin, her posture, and decided she didn't belong. "Good afternoon," Louise said with a polite smile. "I have a reservation. Louise Carter." The receptionist, his name tag read Daniel, hesitated just long enough to make it feel intentional. "And you're sure it's for today?" Louise's smile didn't fade. "Yes, under Carter. Reserved a king suite, garden view. Booked 2 weeks ago." Daniel tapped at his keyboard, expression unreadable. A blonde woman behind him leaned in, whispering something. Daniel nodded slightly, then looked back at Louise. "I'm sorry, but I don't see a reservation under that name. Could it have been made under someone else's card?" "No," Louise replied evenly. "I made the reservation myself. With my card." "Right." He exhaled through his nose. "Do you mind stepping aside for just a moment while I help the next guest?" Louise blinked. "I'd rather we finish this first." Daniel offered a tight smile. "Ma'am, I just need to double-check a few things. It won't take long." From the corner of her eye, Louise saw a man in golf attire walk up. White, mid-40s. He was greeted immediately. Warm handshake, friendly joke, room key within minutes. No questions. No ID check. She turned back to Daniel. "Funny how quickly the system works when someone else walks in." Daniel's posture stiffened. "I'm just following protocol, ma'am." Louise pulled out her phone. "Would your protocol like to see the confirmation email?" Daniel's fingers froze mid-type. She placed the phone gently on the counter. On the screen was the reservation. Louise Carter, Platinum member, 3-night stay. Fully prepaid. Silence. "I'll get the manager," Daniel mumbled. As he stepped away, Louise remained still. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She had been here before, maybe not in this lobby, but in this moment. When doubt arrived before her name, when politeness masked exclusion, when the price of dignity was having to earn it twice. She placed her hands calmly on the counter and waited. Chapter 2. Assumptions and Apologies. The manager arrived with a practiced smile and nervous eyes. "Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm Jordan, front office manager. I understand there's been some confusion about your reservation?" Louise didn't move. "No confusion, just reluctance." Jordan glanced at the screen Daniel had been working from. Then at the phone Louise had placed gently on the counter. Her reservation details were still lit up, undeniable. "Ah, I see it here," he said quickly, his voice rising with forced cheer. "Platinum tier, yes. Looks like a bit of a system error. So sorry for the delay." Louise arched an eyebrow. "Your system didn't seem to have trouble checking in the gentleman behind me." Jordan's smile faltered. "We treat all our guests equally, ma'am." "No," she said flatly. "You don't." The room seemed quieter than before. The receptionist stood frozen nearby, pretending to straighten a brochure stand. The blonde woman he'd whispered with moments ago had vanished into a back office. Jordan cleared his throat. "I'd be happy to offer you a complimentary upgrade for the inconvenience." "I didn't ask for more," Louise replied. "I asked for what I already paid for." There was no anger in her voice, just truth, sharp, and undeniable. Jordan nodded slowly. Understood. Your suite is being prepared now. May I escort you to the lounge while you wait? Louise picked up her phone and slid it back into her tote. I'll wait right here, in plain view. She turned and sat on one of the lobby chairs, straight-backed, facing the desk. As she sat, she noticed something new. People were watching. A few guests glanced up from their phones. A bellhop paused by the elevator. The uniformed doorman, who had offered no greeting when she entered, now looked her way with a conflicted expression. She was no longer invisible, and she wasn't going to shrink. Minutes later, Jordan returned with a key card and a different tone. Your suite is ready. I'll personally escort you now. Louise rose without a word. As she passed the desk, Daniel avoided her gaze. In the elevator, Jordan spoke again. I want to sincerely apologize for what happened downstairs. Louise turned to him. You can apologize for the delay, but you don't get to apologize for something you refuse to name. He said nothing. She looked ahead, calm as ever. What happened downstairs has a name. Until you say it, your apology is just damage control. When the elevator dinged open, she stepped out first. She didn't look back. Chapter 3. A room with a view. The suite was elegant. Polished oak furniture, velvet drapes framing floor-to-ceiling windows, and a garden view that overlooked a private fountain courtyard. A bottle of champagne sat chilled on the sideboard, an obvious gesture from management. Louise didn't touch it. She walked slowly around the room, taking it in like a gallery of decisions made too late. Everything about the space said comfort, but her shoulders were still tense, not because she wasn't welcome now, but because she hadn't been when it mattered. She lowered herself into the armchair by the window and exhaled. The denim jacket remained on, her cap too. Old habits didn't vanish in soft lighting. Her phone buzzed. A message from her granddaughter, Lila. You make it to the hotel okay, Grandma? Louise typed back, Yes. Room is nice. Staff took a while to remember I belonged here. No emoji, no elaboration. She scrolled through her inbox and reread the confirmation. It was perfect. Clear, precise, prepaid. There had been no room for doubt. But it had still walked in with her, like it always did. She remembered years ago, traveling with her late husband. Different hotel, different city. He'd booked a dinner reservation under his full name, George E. Carter, Jr., and when they arrived, the host had looked past them, scanning for someone else. A white couple behind them was escorted in. They had waited 25 minutes. No apology. That night, George had said, sometimes our names open doors, but not always for us. Louise closed her eyes. She could still hear his voice. Later that evening, she went down to the hotel's restaurant. The maitre d' greeted her stiffly and offered a seat near the kitchen. She looked at the half-empty main dining area and asked, Is that the only table available for platinum guests? He blinked, then quickly changed course. Of course not, ma'am. Please, follow me. She was led to a prime table by the window. The sudden shift didn't surprise her. It never did. Halfway through her meal, a young woman approached her table. Early 30s, professional dress, nervous energy. I just wanted to say, I saw what happened at check-in earlier, she said. It wasn't right. Louise looked at her kindly. It wasn't. The woman hesitated. If it were me, I probably would have left. I've done that before, Louise said. But today I stayed, because walking away teaches them nothing. The woman nodded slowly. Thank you for staying. Louise returned to her meal. The food was excellent, the service suddenly attentive. But the lesson, she had already delivered it. Chapter 4. The Eyes That Follow. The next morning, Louise stepped into the elevator dressed for a walk. Clean sneakers, her worn cap, and the same denim jacket that had caused so much discomfort at the front desk. Two guests stepped in behind her, a couple in tailored activewear, lanyards around their necks that read, Belmont Spa Experience. They offered her a polite smile, then quickly returned to scrolling their phones. But Louise felt it anyway. The glance, the double check, the calculation. On the lobby floor, a new receptionist stood behind the counter. As Louise walked past, she caught the tail end of a hushed exchange between staff. Her name wasn't spoken, but she didn't need to hear it. The tone said everything. She exited through the grand doors into the bright morning air and started her walk down the garden path. Every movement was deliberate, not just for exercise, but to remind the hotel that she existed here, too. Halfway through the courtyard, a bellhop approached her with a clipboard. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said politely. "Are you looking for someone?" Louise stopped. "Number I'm staying here." He blinked. I'm sorry. I didn't recognize you as a guest." "That's funny," she replied. "I've been recognized all morning." He flushed red and backed away, stammering something about routine check-ins. Louise continued walking. Back in the lounge later, she took a seat near the fireplace, sipping tea and reading a novel. A few guests walked by without acknowledging her. One paused, glanced around, then asked, "Excuse me, are you staff?" Louise looked up from her book. "No," she said coolly. "But I suppose that depends on who you think belongs here." The woman mumbled an apology and walked away quickly. Across the room, an older black man in a gray sports coat gave Louise a subtle nod of solidarity. She returned it, quietly grateful for the unspoken bond. That evening, as Louise returned to her suite, a folded piece of hotel stationery sat just inside the door. It read, "Mrs. Carter, we regret that your arrival experience did not meet the standards we strive for. Please accept our sincerest apologies. We would be honored to have a brief word at your convenience. Jordan, front office manager." She stared at the note for a long moment. It was courteous, professional, safe, but not honest. She folded it in half and tucked it away without responding. Because she wasn't here for comfort. She was here to be seen. And some lessons were best left to linger unanswered. Chapter 5. The Weight of Politeness. Louise stood in front of the long mirror in her suite, brushing a strand of silver hair back beneath her cap. The evening sun bathed the room in a soft orange glow. She'd declined room service, opted out of housekeeping, and kept the "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door, not out of isolation, but for peace. Not everyone deserved access to her space. Downstairs, the hotel buzzed with activity. A charity gala was being hosted in the ballroom. One of the staff had casually mentioned it during check-in, as if Louise wouldn't care or wouldn't belong. Guests moved in and out of elevators, dressed in silk and sequins, clinking glasses and pretending not to notice her when she passed by. She watched them from the lobby lounge. She didn't need an invitation. She already knew how these evenings went. As she sat quietly with her book, a hotel staffer approached, a young black woman in a blazer, a size too large and shoes too tight. "I just wanted to say," the girl whispered, "you remind me of my grandmother." Louise smiled gently. "Is that a compliment or a warning?" The woman chuckled. "A little of both. She doesn't take disrespect either." They spoke for a few minutes, about work, about names no one tries to pronounce correctly, about what it feels like to walk through luxury as a guest and still be treated like you should be cleaning the floor. Before she left, the staffer said, "They'll never say it out loud, but your presence unsettles them." "Good," Louise replied. "Comfort doesn't build change." Later that night, back in her room, she opened her email. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Vanessa King, a travel blogger who had been staying at the hotel. The subject line read, "Saw what happened at check-in. I recorded it. You were right to stand your ground. Would you be open to talking? Louise read the message twice. She wasn't surprised that someone had filmed the exchange. People filmed everything these days, but she hadn't expected someone to reach out with that kind of clarity. She replied simply, "Yes, but only if you're writing the truth, not just the drama." Vanessa responded almost instantly. "Always. I believe in stories that shake the room." Yours did. Louise stared out at the dark garden below. She didn't ask for attention, but if the world was watching, it was time they listened too. Chapter 6. The Story That Traveled. Vanessa King's blog post dropped 3 days later. The headline was simple: "When Respect Requires Proof. What Happened to Louise Carter at the Belmont Grand." The post opened with a still image from the hotel's check-in security footage. Louise, standing firm at the desk, the staff's expressions captured mid-dismissal. Vanessa had blurred faces for privacy, but the scene was unmistakable. She described the facts clearly: a paid reservation, a platinum member, a moment of hesitation that turned into humiliation, and a woman who refused to disappear quietly. The article didn't rage, it didn't accuse. It observed, sharp and precise, each pause, each assumption, each moment where doubt was offered before service. By morning, it had 12,000 shares. By afternoon, 90,000. Louise's name trended, not because she asked for it, but because so many people recognized her story. Comments poured in. "This happened to my father last year. I've been mistaken for staff in lobbies I paid to be in. Black women deserve better than silence." Vanessa sent a follow-up message. "I hope you're okay with the attention. I tried to protect your dignity while telling the truth." Louise replied, "You didn't protect it. You amplified it." Thank you journalists began calling, national outlets, travel magazines, advocacy groups. Some wanted interviews, others wanted to use her image for diversity initiatives. Louise turned most of them down. She wasn't interested in being a symbol for their brochures. But one request caught her eye: an invitation to speak on a panel about discrimination in the hospitality industry. Not for cameras, for staff, real training, real change. She said yes. Before she traveled again, she received a letter from Belmont Grand's corporate office. "We are aware of recent events and deeply regret the experience you encountered at our property. We are revisiting our employee training policies and would welcome the chance to meet and hear your feedback directly." Louise didn't respond. She didn't need to. The message had already been sent, and the world was still echoing with its truth. Chapter 7. The Panel. The room wasn't grand. No chandeliers, no velvet carpets. Just folding chairs, coffee in cardboard cups, and name tags clipped to lanyards. But for the first time in weeks, Louise felt something genuine. The panel was part of a training conference for hotel managers and frontline staff. Not just executives in suits, but the people who greeted guests, carried luggage, changed sheets, and made the whole machine run. Vanessa King was there too, sitting in the front row. When Louise took her seat at the front, there was polite applause. Some recognized her. Others, mostly younger staffers, looked at her with a quiet sort of awe. The moderator leaned into the mic. "Ms. Carter, thank you for being here. We've read your story, but we want to hear what wasn't written." Louise didn't read from notes. She never had. "I wasn't angry that day," she began. "I was prepared. That's worse." The room fell silent. "I've learned, over 7 decades, how to move through places that don't expect me, to be calm when people question what I've already earned, to wait longer for the same service, to prove myself twice." She paused, meeting the eyes of the audience. But the weight of politeness doesn't erase the damage of being unseen. One hand went up in the back. A young receptionist stood. "What should we say to guests like you when we realize we've made that mistake?" Louise gave a small smile. You start with the truth, not excuses, not our system glitched. You say, I judged you. I was wrong. And I'm sorry. Another hand. What makes the biggest difference in how we treat people? Louise didn't hesitate. Assume they belong. The applause that followed wasn't explosive. It was slow, steady, earned. After the panel, staff lined up to speak with her. Some shared their own experiences, being mistaken for delivery drivers, ignored while accompanying guests, assumed to be guests only when they wore designer clothing. One young woman teared up. Thank you for making them listen. They never believe us when we say it happens. Louise took her hand. They're listening now. Make sure they don't forget. As she left the building, she didn't feel like a guest anymore. She felt like an architect. Chapter 8. The Backdoor Apology. A week later, a letter arrived by courier. Heavy paper, gold-embossed seal. This time, it was from the president of Belmont Hospitality Group, not the local hotel manager. Dear Ms. Carter, we regret the treatment you experienced at our Belmont Grand property. We are currently instituting reforms in staff training and guest engagement protocols to ensure such incidents do not repeat themselves. We would also like to offer a lifetime membership to our premium rewards tier, complimentary accommodations, at any Belmont property, and a formal invitation to consult on diversity initiatives moving forward. Louise read the letter once, then again. It was polished, respectful, but it rang hollow, because while the tone had changed, the strategy hadn't. Quiet the noise, keep the image clean, compensate without confronting. She placed the letter on the kitchen counter and walked away. That evening, Vanessa called. I heard they sent you a peace offering, she said. More like a branding opportunity, Louise replied. Are you going to take it? I'm going to answer it, Louise said, but not the way they expect. The next day, Louise penned her response, not with legal threats, not with PR-friendly language, but with clarity. I don't need complimentary stays. I don't want my presence used as evidence that the problem is solved. What I want is for you to publish the numbers on complaints, on racial profiling incidents, on who gets stopped and who doesn't. I want you to make your staff's training materials public. And I want you to understand that what happened to me isn't rare. It's routine. Start there, then we'll talk. She signed it simply. Louise Carter Platinum Member. Human being. The letter made its way through the right inboxes. Corporate didn't issue a rebuttal. They released a statement 2 days later promising more transparency. But for Louise, that wasn't the win. The real victory came in the inbox messages that followed, from staff members at other hotels, from customer service workers in airports, from women, young and old, who saw their stories reflected in hers. She wasn't just holding one hotel accountable, she was shaking the entire foundation of how they operated, and the world was watching. Chapter 9. The Mirror Effect. The video clip resurfaced. It was only 12 seconds. Louise standing at the front desk, reservation in hand, while the receptionist looked past her. But in those seconds, the world saw what thousands had described but struggled to capture. A pause, a dismissal, a decision made in silence. Someone had paired the clip with a voiceover from her panel speech. The weight of politeness doesn't erase the damage of being unseen. The post exploded across platforms. People called it the mirror effect, because watching it made them reflect on their own reactions, their own assumptions. Major hotel brands were suddenly issuing updated training videos. DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion consultants referenced Louise's story in workshops. University courses cited the incident as a case study in unconscious bias. But for Louise, the impact was never about virality. It was about visibility. One afternoon, she received a package. No note, just a small painting inside, her likeness, standing at a hotel desk, hand resting on her confirmation email, eyes calm, unbothered. On the back, handwritten in neat cursive, Because of you, I won't shrink next time. Ava. She placed the painting beside a photo of George, her late husband. I told you I'd keep pushing, she whispered. Later that week, she attended a private gathering hosted by a non-profit that trains young women of color in hospitality leadership. The director introduced her as the woman who taught the world that dignity doesn't wait for permission. Louise spoke briefly, not about herself, but about the ones who wouldn't go viral. There are thousands of people who walk into hotels, classrooms, offices every day and get doubted first. They don't yell, they don't fight, they just carry it. This story was mine, but the weight, that's been ours for a long time. By the end, even the hotel representatives in the room stood to clap. Not out of obligation, out of recognition. Louise left that night without a title, without a sponsorship, but with something she had fought for from the moment she walked into the Belmont Grand: respect without condition. Chapter 10. Checkout isn't the end. Louise stood at the checkout counter of a small coastal inn, worlds away from the Belmont Grand's marble floors and sterile luxury. The receptionist, a young man with curls and kind eyes, smiled without hesitation as she approached. Mrs. Carter, did you enjoy your stay? I did, she said warmly. Anything we can improve? She paused for a second, then shook her head. You treated me like I belonged. That's enough. He nodded, not knowing the full weight of what she meant, but somehow understanding it mattered. Outside, the breeze carried ocean salt and morning sun. Louise zipped up her jacket and lifted her tote. She was on her way to speak at a university hospitality program, invited not just as a guest, but as a case study, a movement, a reminder. She never expected to become any of those things. But when you refuse to leave quietly, your presence echoes long after the door closes. She passed through the automatic doors and caught her reflection in the glass, cap pulled low, gray curls tucked in, denim jacket worn soft from time. Nothing flashy, nothing to prove. And yet everywhere she went now, people saw her, for her story, for her stance, for staying when it was easier to leave. She pulled out her phone. A message blinked from Vanessa. The editor of The Atlantic wants to reprint your letter. You okay with that? Louise smiled. Let the world read it. She walked down the steps without hurry. A cab waited at the curb. Before she climbed in, she turned and looked back at the inn's entrance, not because she had to, but because she could. She had learned that exits mattered just as much as entrances, and this one wasn't quiet. It was claimed. Epilogue. Optional. 6 months later, Belmont Hospitality Group launched a guest inclusion initiative. At the opening summit, they displayed a quote on the screen from a now famous voice. The moment you hesitate to see someone, you've already told them who you think they are. Louise Carter. She wasn't in the room, but her presence was, everywhere.